General Hospital has delivered one of its most shocking and emotionally devastating storylines of the season. In a stunning turn of events at Windermere, a revelation emerges that changes everything. A secret that Britt Westman has been harboring suddenly becomes the key to a tragedy that neither Sidwell nor anyone in Port Charles could have anticipated. What began as a calculated dismissal of a liability has transformed into something far more sinister. A son's murder at the hands of his own father. All witnessed by someone who holds the devastating truth. The confrontation that changes everything. The tension at Windermere had been building for weeks. Britt Westman, the brilliant researcher with a complicated past, found herself entangled in Sidwell's dangerous operations once again. The ambitious scientist had brought her into his fold, offering her resources and a chance to continue research that had been interrupted. But as the operation progressed, cracks began to show, particularly in the form of Professor Henry Hank Dalton, a man who had proven to be more liability than asset. Sidwell and Britt had been discussing Dalton's incompetences, reckless behavior, his lies to the PCPD, and his willingness to destroy their carefully constructed laboratory to frame an innocent person. From Sidwell's perspective, Dalton had become expendable. The decision was made swiftly and without hesitation. When Dalton arrived at Windermere, intoxicated and aggressive, confronting Sidwell about their arrangement, the moment of reckoning had arrived. "I'm tired of your failure to make progress," Sidwell had declared coolly, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You're sloppy. You lie. And frankly, I don't need that kind of chaos in my operation." Dalton had begun to protest, to bargain, but his words fell on deaf ears. In a moment of chilling finality, Sidwell pulled a gun from seemingly nowhere and fired. The shot echoed through Windermere's halls, and Dalton crumpled to the ground. Britt gasped in horror, her eyes wide with shock at the sudden violence. It was brutal, swift, and utterly calculated, exactly the kind of thing Sidwell was capable of doing without a second thought. The secret that shatters everything. But Britt harbored a secret that she had not yet shared with Sidwell. After witnessing the shooting, after the initial shock had begun to fade, she knew she had to reveal what she had discovered. The weight of the truth pressed down on her as she looked at Sidwell's cold, satisfied expression. She had to tell him what she had learned about Dalton's true identity. A discovery that would unravel everything he thought he knew. "Sidwell," Britt said, her voice trembling as she broke the suffocating silence. "There's something you need to know. Something I found out about Dalton." Sidwell turned to her, his expression still hardened by the act he had just committed. "What could possibly matter now?" he asked dismissively. Britt took a deep breath, the weight of her words pressing against her chest. "I investigated Dalton's background. I dug into his past, his personal history, and what I discovered." She paused, searching his face for any sign of what his reaction might be. "Sid, well, Dalton wasn't who you thought he was. He wasn't just some expendable academic. He was..." The words hung in the air between them. almost too terrible to speak aloud. He was your son, Britt finished quietly. Dalton was your biological son. The research I found, the birth records, the documentation, it all points to the same conclusion. Whatever happened in your past, whatever circumstances led to his adoption or separation from your family, he was your blood. The moment of recognition, the effect of Britt's revelation on Sidwell was immediate and devastating. The cold, calculating Dylan's face crumbled before Britt's eyes. The man who had committed murder, without hesitation, suddenly found himself confronted with the terrible reality of what he had done. His hands began to shake, his carefully constructed facade of indifference shattered like glass. "That's not possible," Sidwell whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're lying." "I'm not," Britt said firmly, though compassion flickered in her eyes. Despite everything, despite Sidwell's ruthlessness and his involvement in a legal research, she understood the magnitude of what she had just revealed to him. "I wouldn't lie about something like this. I have the evidence. The documentation is thorough." Sidwell staggered backward as if physically struck by the weight of Britt's words. He looked down at the body of the man he had just shot, the man he had dismissed as a problem to be eliminated. That man was his son, not some stranger, not some inconvenient associate, his own biological son. The realization seemed to crack something fundamental within him. Tears began to stream down Sidwell's face, something those who knew him might have thought impossible. His shoulders shook with sobs of anguish and profound regret. He had lived his life without principles, without conscience, making calculated decisions that served only his ambitions. But this was different. This crossed a line that even he could not cross without feeling the weight of it. "I've made a grave mistake," Sidwell said, his voice with emotion. "Tell me everything. How did I not know? How could this have happened?" The weight of the truth. Britt explained what she had discovered. How Dalton's birth records indicated a connection to Sidwell's past. How the timeline aligned with events that had occurred years before. Perhaps Dalton himself had not known the truth about his parentage. Perhaps he had been raised elsewhere, his true origins hidden from him. But the evidence was irrefutable. As Sid well absorbed this devastating knowledge, the magnitude of his actions became unbearable. He had murdered his own son in a fit of cold calculation and ambition. He had ended a life that shared his blood, severed a connection that he had never even known existed. And now, standing over Dalton's body, Sidwell found himself transformed by remorse, a man who had lived without conscience, suddenly confronted by the most consequential act of his life. "What do I do now?" Sidwell asked Britt, his voice hollow and broken. "How do I live with this? How do I explain what happened here?" Britt stood silently, watching as the villain unraveled before her. She had revealed the truth, not out of malice, but because it was important. Because someone needed to know what had been lost, what had been destroyed in that single moment of violence. In exposing Sidwell's terrible secret, she had inadvertently created a moment of reckoning that no amount of calculation or planning could have anticipated. The aftermath in Port Charles. As news of Dalton's death begins to spread through Port Charles, questions will inevitably arise. Laura discovers Dalton's body and finds herself in a precarious position as Sidwell attempts to frame her for the murder. Meanwhile, Britt must decide whether to reveal the truth about what happened at Windermere, knowing that her testimony could expose both Sidwell's crime and her own complicity in his operation. The emotional reverberations of this revelation will extend far beyond Windermere. Britt must contend with her own guilt at having witnessed this tragedy without intervention. Sidwell must grapple with the horrifying knowledge that he has committed patricide, however unknowing, and Port Charles must prepare for the chaos that will inevitably follow when the truth of Dalton's death and the circumstances that led to it finally comes to light. In this moment of dark revelation, General Hospital has delivered a powerful reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition and moral compromise. Sidwell's punishment will not come from the legal system alone. It will come from his own conscience, from the unbearable weight of knowing that he destroyed the very connection he never had the chance to build. Next, we will learn about the fascinating behind-scenes mix-up that sent shock waves through the soap opera community and left fans breathlessly speculating about a potential crossover event that could have rewritten television history. The incident centers around beloved General Hospital veteran Nancy Lee Gran, whose seemingly innocent social media activity sparked a wildfire of rumors that had babies of both daytime and primetime dramas clinging to the edges of their seats with anticipation. The story began unfolding on a seemingly ordinary Wednesday afternoon when Nancy Lee Gran, the Emmy-winning actress who has embodied the complex and layered character of Alexis Davis on General Hospital for decades, took to her Instagram account with a post that would immediately set the internet ablaze. The content appeared straightforward at first glance. A brief video reel showcasing the iconic Great Plus Sloan Memorial Hospital exterior, complete with its distinctive architectural features that Grey's Anatomy fans have come to recognize instantly. However, the absence of any explanatory caption created a perfect vacuum for speculation, and the soap opera community rushed to fill that void with their wildest dreams and most ambitious hopes. As viewers scrutinized every frame of the second clip, they noticed what appeared to be production crew members and technical staff moving purposefully in the foreground, their silhouettes backlit by the California sun. The lighting, the angles, the very composition of the shot suggested something more than a casual tourist moment. It had the deliberate feel of behind-scenes footage, the kind networks typically release when promoting major storyline events or special cross-network collaborations. The audio component, when enhanced and replayed countless times by determined fans, revealed something even more tantalizing, a snippet of conversation where someone mentioned an email that had specifically directed Nancy to this exact location using what sounded like official production terminology. In the accompanying audio narration, Gran's distinctive voice could be heard recounting the experience with her characteristic wit and self-deprecating humor. She described finding herself standing before the famous hospital facade, the very building that has served as the backdrop for some of prime time's most devastating medical emergencies and heartbreaking character departures. Her tone carried a playful bewilderment as she joked about potentially being in the wrong place at the wrong time, perhaps mistakenly thinking she had been cast in the rival daytime serial that shares the same network parentage. This offhand comment, delivered with her trademark dried delivery, was interpreted by hopeful fans as a coy tease rather than the innocent musing it apparently was. The comment section beneath her post transformed into a digital town square where theories multiplied exponentially within minutes of the upload. One enthusiastic follower named Sarah_Masoan to 7 wrote, crossover, that would be amazing. My 2 favorite shows combined would literally break the internet and my heart simultaneously. Another devote going by the handle Grey Lover added, that would be fun if you did show up there. Imagine Alexis Davis walking into Grey Sloan as a patient with some mysterious illness that only Meredith Grey could diagnose. The drama would be legendary. The outpouring of support and excitement demonstrated just how hungry the audience was for this type of ambitious storytelling, with each comment building upon the last to create a crescendo of anticipation that spread across Twitter, Facebook, and various soap opera forums like wildfire. Through dry brush, the name confusion. Delving deeper into this tangled web of connections reveals a fascinating layer of complexity that might have subconsciously fueled the crossover speculation from the very beginning. The entertainment industry, particularly the soap opera world, has long been plagued by amusing cases of mistaken identity and name confusion. But this situation presents a particularly unique, triple-layered coincidence that seems almost too perfectly orchestrated to be accidental. At the center stands Nancy Lee Gran, the powerhouse performer whose portrayal of Alexis Davis has earned her multiple Daytime Emmy nominations and a devoted fan base that has followed her character through decades of tumultuous storylines, including murder trials, political campaigns, and complex family dynamics that have defined General Hospital's modern era. The first layer of confusion emerged from the Grey's Anatomy expanded universe itself, specifically from the beloved spin-off series Private Practice that ran for 6 seasons and followed Addison Montgomery's journey to Los Angeles. That series introduced a character named Nancy Lee, a role brought to life by actress Mia Wolf, who delivered a memorable performance that left an indelible mark on the Sean Dalen faithful. Though this character existed in a different narrative universe, the name similarity created an immediate mental association for fans who follow both daytime and primetime medical dramas, establishing a cognitive link that would later prove significant when Gran's Instagram post appeared. The second layer materialized within Grey's Anatomy proper during the show's th season, specifically in the emotionally charged Ring of Fire episode that aired in May. In that installment, a completely different performer named Nancy J. Lee appeared in a guest role of Cheryl, a patient whose storyline intersected with the main cast during a particularly dramatic surgical case. This casting choice added yet another Nancy Lee variant to the mix, creating what can only be described as a perfect Storm of nominative synchronicity that had fans' minds naturally connecting dots that might not have existed otherwise. The third layer involves the behind-the-scenes reality that both productions share the same physical space at Prospect Studios in Los Feliz, California. A historic facility that has been home to countless iconic television productions since its inception. This geographical proximity means that crew members, production staff, and even actors from both shows regularly encounter each other in communal areas like the cafeteria, parking structures, and administrative offices. The studio lot has become a melting pot of daytime and primetime talent where the line between these two television worlds blurs during lunch breaks and between takes, creating an environment where cross-pollination of ideas and casual fraternization is not just possible but practically inevitable. Studios and production logistics. The physical reality of how these two television juggernauts coexist provides perhaps the most compelling argument for why a crossover, while exciting to imagine, presents significant logistical challenges that extend far beyond simple geography. Prospect Studios, formerly known as ABC Television Center, occupies a sprawling campus that houses multiple sound stages, production offices, and support facilities. Grey's Anatomy primarily utilizes several of the largest sound stages on the lot for its extensive interior hospital sets, including the iconic operating rooms, the bustling, and the character's locker room, where so many pivotal conversations have unfolded over seasons. General Hospital, while also filming interior scenes within these same hallowed halls, operates on a different production schedule that has been fine-tuned over years of continuous broadcasting. The daytime drama typically tapes multiple episodes per day, with actors often shooting scenes out of sequence and depending on a rapid-fire production pace that allows for minimal retakes and maximum efficiency. Primetime productions like Grey's Anatomy, conversely, enjoy more generous schedules, larger budgets per episode, and extended post-production timelines that accommodate complex visual effects and intricate sound design. These divergent operational rhythms create a synchronization problem that would make any substantial crossover event a scheduling nightmare of epic proportions. Moreover, the union rules and contractual obligations governing daytime versus prime time productions differ significantly, with separate agreements from entities like SAG-AFTRA, the Directors Guild, and various crew unions that would require extensive negotiation and potential financial penalties for cross-utilization of talent. The lighting, setups, camera equipment, and even the basic technical specifications vary between the two formats, meaning that scenes would require careful planning to maintain visual consistency across the different production styles. Even something as simple as matching the color grading that defines Grey's Anatomy cinematic aesthetic with General Hospital's brighter, more traditional soap opera look would present post-production challenges that could delay episodes and increase costs exponentially. Fan theories and social media explosion. The viral nature of Grand's Instagram post demonstrates the extraordinary power of social media to amplify speculation and create collective wish fulfillment scenarios that take on lives of their own. Within hours of the initial posting, the video had been shared over times across various platforms with fan edit accounts creating elaborate montages that spliced Alexis Davis footage into Grey's Anatomy scenes, complete with dramatic medical jargon and emotional monologues about patient care. Twitter threads analyzing the potential storylines reached hundreds of thousands of impressions with hashtags like Alexis, Traslin and crossover trending in multiple markets, particularly in demographics that overlap between the two shows' audiences. Digital content creators specializing in soap opera commentary produced lengthy YouTube videos dissecting every possible interpretation of Grant's post with some channels dedicating entire episodes to speculating which General Hospital characters would be most likely to appear in a Grey's Anatomy medical crisis scenario. The consensus among fan theorists seemed to converge on the idea that Alexis Davis, with her history of personal trauma and substance abuse struggles, would make a compelling patient case study for Meredith Gay's diagnostic genius. Others suggested that Dr. Hamilton Finn, General Hospital's infectious disease specialist, could consult on a mysterious outbreak at Grey Sloan, bringing with him the soap's trademark dramatic flair for medical storytelling that primetime often lacks. Instagram stories exploded with polls asking followers to vote on potential crossover scenarios, while TikTok users created short-form content imagining comedic encounters between characters from both universes. One particularly viral video showed a split screen comparison of Grey's Anatomy's signature serious doctor face montages alongside General Hospital's famous staring into the distance while dramatic music plays moments highlighting both the similarities and differences in how each production approaches emotional storytelling. The engagement metrics across all platforms indicated that this speculative event had tapped into something deep within the fan community's a desire to see their favorite characters transcend the artificial boundaries that separate daytime from primetime soap opera from network drama industry context and historical precedents. While cross-net, network or cross-format crossovers remain relatively rare in the television landscape, they are not entirely without precedent, which perhaps explains why fans felt emboldened to hope for such an ambitious collaboration. The most famous example remains the crossover event between NBC's Friends and Mad About You, which, while both primetime sitcoms, demonstrated that audiences delighted in seeing characters from different shows inhabit the same narrative space. More recently, the Arrowverse on the CW perfected the art of the crossover, creating annual events that combine multiple superhero shows into cohesive storylines that spanned weeks and involved dozens of characters, setting a new standard for what ambitious television world-building could achieve. In the soap opera realm, crossovers have historically been more common within the same network family, particularly during the S, when ABC's entire daytime lineup existed in what fans termed the ABC soap universe. Characters from General Hospital would occasionally reference events happening on All My Children or One Life to Live, creating a loose sense of shared reality that thrilled dedicated viewers. However, these were typically subtle nods rather than full-fledged character integrations. The logistical and financial barriers to true cross-pollination between daytime and primetime productions have proven formidable with different revenue models, advertising structures, and audience measurement systems creating institutional separations that are difficult to bridge. Financial considerations present perhaps the most significant obstacle to such a collaboration. General Hospital operates on a dramatically smaller per episode budget compared to Grey's Anatomy, with cost-cutting measures that include accelerated filming schedules, limited location shooting, and reduced post-production polish. A crossover would require either elevating GH's production values to match Grey's cinematic quality, potentially bankrupting the daytime budget, or accepting that Alexis Davis would appear jarringly different when transferred to the primetime aesthetic. Network executives, when privately consulted about such possibilities, typically cite these economic realities as the primary reason why ambitious crossover dreams remain in the realm of fanfiction rather than actual development slates. The clarification and reality check. After hours of intense speculation that had grown into a full-blown internet phenomenon, Nancy Lee Gran returned to social media to address the situation directly, though her clarification came with a mixture of amusement and gentle resignation that suggested she had anticipated this reaction. In a follow-up Instagram story that has since expired but was captured by numerous fan accounts, she spoke directly to the camera from what appeared to be her dressing room at Prospect Studios. Her expression carried the weary amusement of someone who has navigated soap opera fan expectations for decades, understanding both the passion behind the speculation and the practical impossibility of what was being proposed. She explained succinctly, but with her characteristic wit, that she had simply wandered across the parking lot to the building that houses the Grey's Anatomy production offices, drawn there by what she described as official-looking paperwork that had been emailed to her regarding a routine studio matter. The Sloan Hospital sign, iconic to Grey's fans worldwide, had provided a moment of disorienting recognition that prompted her to share the experience with her followers. She emphasized that no grand crossover plans were secretly in development. No clandestine meetings had occurred between Shaw Dayland executives and General Hospital producers, and certainly no contracts were being negotiated to bring Alexis Davis into the Grey's Anatomy universe. Industry insider Len Carter, a veteran writer and producer who has worked extensively at Prospect Studios and commented on Gran's original post, corroborated her explanation with his own experience. He noted that the studio's layout often creates confusion even among seasoned professionals, recounting how he himself had once spent minutes wandering the wrong sound stage, convinced he was late for a General Hospital production meeting, only to find himself amidst Grey's Anatomy crew members preparing for a complex surgery scene. His comment, "Yep, saw them do that a few times when I was there, too. Thought I was in the wrong place," resonated with many production staff who liked and shared his observation, creating a secondary thread of discussion about the bizarre geography of television production facilities, future possibilities and dream scenarios. While The immediate crossover speculation has been thoroughly debunked. The incident has opened up fascinating conversations about what such a collaboration might theoretically look like if the stars align and the considerable obstacles could somehow be overcome. Soap opera journalists and television critics have begun drafting hypothetical storylines that would integrate General Hospital's Port Charles universe with Grey's Anatomy Seattle setting in ways that respect both shows' established mythologies while creating something legitimately fresh and exciting for combined audiences. One particularly compelling scenario involves Alexis Davis traveling to Seattle for a medical conference on healthcare law, only to suffer a sudden collapse that lands her in the care of Meredith Gay's diagnostic team. The storyline would allow for Alexis's complex personal history, including her battles with alcoholism, her complicated relationships with powerful men, and her experience as both a lawyer and a mother, to intersect with Grey's Anatomy's typical exploration of how personal trauma affects professional life. Fans have suggested that scenes between Grant and Ellen Pompeo would be electric, combining two powerhouse actresses known for delivering emotionally devastating monologues about survival and resilience. Another fan favorite concept proposes a disease outbreak storyline that begins in Port Charles but spreads rapidly enough to require CDC involvement, bringing Dr. Hamilton Finn into contact with Grace Sloan's infectious disease specialists. This scenario would leverage General Hospital's willingness to embrace slightly more sensational medical storylines while allowing Grey's Anatomy to maintain its more grounded, realistic approach to medicine. The two crossover event could alternate episodes between shows, with the GH episodes focusing on the local impact and personal drama, while Grey's episodes tackle the broader medical and ethical implications from a research and treatment perspective. These dream scenarios, while pure fantasy, demonstrate the deep affection audiences hold for both productions and their desire to see boundaries between television formats become more porous. The Instagram incident, brief as it was, tapped into a latent hunger for innovative storytelling that transcends traditional silos until the day when network executives, producers, and union representatives can solve the logistical puzzle that prevents such collaborations. Fans will have to content themselves with social media posts that momentarily blur the lines between their favorite fictional worlds.